People think love stories always start with a kiss, or a glance across a crowded room, or some dramatic moment where music swells and everything feels inevitable. But this one didn't start like that. It started with a wall full of old paper, fading ink, and the quiet weight of words no one thought would ever be answered. I was in a small town in northern Italy called Valdora, the kind of place tourists don't plan to stay long but somehow always do. Cobblestone streets, laundry hanging from balconies, espresso cups clinking at dawn. And tucked between a bakery and a souvenir shop was an old stone courtyard people called the House of Elia. Nobody really knew who Elia was anymore. Some said she was a fictional girl from a forgotten play. Others swore she was real, a young woman who once loved fiercely and lost everything for it. The legend didn't matter as much as what people believed about her now. They said if your heart was broken, you could write her a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. Paper. Ink. Something you had to slow down for. Do they slip it into the cracks of the wall, or tape it beside hundreds of others, and somehow, weeks later, do they receive a reply? People laughed at that part. Right up until it happened to them. It didn't come to Valdora for love. It came because my life felt stalled. Like a car stuck in neutral, engine running, nowhere to go. I was supposed to be writing my second book, but every sentence felt hollow, every character felt borrowed. My editor called it burnout. He called it fear. So there I was, standing in front of a bronze statue of a young woman, her hand polished smooth by decades of strangers touching it, hoping for something they didn't quite know how to name. I didn't touch the statue. I didn't believe in that kind of magic. But I watched the people who did. I saw a teenage girl wiping her face before pressing her palm against the metal, whispering something like a prayer. I saw an older man stand there for a long time, just staring, his hand hovering, trembling, before he finally touched the statue and let out a breath like they'd been holding it for years. And then there were the letters. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Folded notice, torn notebook pages, hotel stationery, envelopes yellowed with age. Confessions. Apologies. Last chances. Some were angry. Some were hopeful. Some looked like they'd been written through tears. What struck me wasn't how desperate they sounded. It was how honest they were. I was scribbling notes in my journal when I noticed her. She moved differently from the tourists. Calm. Unhurried. Like she belonged there. She wore a long grey coat and carried a wicker basket on her arm, the kind you'd expect to see at a farmer's market. Without drawing attention to herself, she began gently removing letters from the wall, slipping them into the basket one by one. No sign. No uniform. No explanation. Just, quiet purpose. At first, I assumed she worked for the city. Or maybe she was cleaning up old notes to make room for new ones. But then another woman appeared, and another. They nodded to each other like co-workers changing shifts. One of them laughed softly at something written on a page before carefully folding it and placing it in her bag. That's when curiosity took over. I followed them. I'm not proud of it, but writers are professional eavesdroppers. We live for unanswered questions. They led me through narrow streets to a small trattoria tucked away from the main square. Inside, the smell of garlic and wine wrapped around the room, warm and familiar. The women sat at a corner table, baskets between them, spreading letters out like tarot cards. One of them noticed me staring. She smiled. Not suspicious. Not annoyed. Just amused. You're a writer, she said, glancing at the notebook under my arm. I froze. Is it that obvious? You watch more than you speak, she replied. That's usually a giveaway. Before I could explain myself, another woman chimed in, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Eyes sharp but kind. She thinks we're doing something illegal. They laughed. Not unkindly. Not mockingly. Just, knowingly. That's how I met them. The women who answered the letters. They didn't call themselves anything official. No organization. No website. No funding. Just a group of women who had been coming to the House of Elia for decades, volunteering their time to write back to strangers who poured their hearts into paper and hope. Each of them had a role, though no one assigned it. Mara, the oldest, had been married for over 50 years before her husband passed. She handled letters about long marriages, quiet resentments, love that faded into routine and needed remembering again. Lena had once been a nurse. She wrote to people grieving, people who had lost partners, parents, children. She knew how to choose words that didn't promise healing but offered companionship in the pain. Rosa had 12 children, more grandchildren than she could count, and opinions about everything. She answered questions about living together, fighting fairly, forgiving loudly and loving without keeping score. And then there was Celeste. She didn't speak much at first. She read the hardest letters. The angry ones. The ones written after breakups that left people hollowed out. When she did speak, everyone listened. Love don't fail because people stop caring, she once said, tapping a letter with her finger. It fails because people stop being brave. I didn't know why that sentence hit me so hard. I just knew it did. They asked why I was in Valdora, and I gave them a half-truth. Said I was researching. Said I needed inspiration. Said I didn't believe in legends but liked what they represented. Celeste looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. That's usually how it starts. The next morning, I went with her to collect letters. That was when everything changed. I was reaching for a note wedged deep into the wall when my hand brushed against something solid. A loose brick shifted under my fingers. Instinctively, I pulled it free. Behind it was an envelope. Not tapped. Not folded. Hidden. It was thick, dusty, the paper brittle with age. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, the kind people used before autocorrect made us lazy. And the date on the corner made my breath catch. 48 years ago the name signed at the bottom wasn't Alia. It was Evelyn. He brought the letter back to the group. The room fell quiet as Celeste read it aloud, her voice steady even when the words didn't. Evelyn wrote about a boy named Tomas. About summers in the countryside. About the promise made beneath an oak tree at the edge of a vineyard. They planned to run away together. Start phrase. Deep breath. She never showed up. Fair one. Her family intervened. Life moved on. Thomas waited anyway. She never knew how long. The letter ended without closure. No goodbye. Just a sentence that felt unfinished, like she couldn't bring herself to write the end. When Celeste finished reading, no one spoke for a long time. Do we answer it? He finally asked. Mara shook her head gently. It's been nearly 50 years. That don't mean it stopped mattering, I said, surprising myself with how quickly the words came. Celeste studied the letter again. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. You want to answer it? I think. You think someone should. So I did. That night, alone in my room, I wrote back to a woman who might never read it. He didn't offer advice. He didn't promise miracles. He just acknowledged her fear, her regret, her love. He told her she wasn't foolish for wondering what might have been. He sealed the envelope and mailed it, not expecting anything. A week later, someone knocked on my door. He was tall, dinsy, and looked like he'd been holding in anger for years. My name is Daniel, he said. And I think you wrote a letter to my grandmother. And in that moment, standing there in a foreign country with a stranger's grief aimed directly at my chest, I realized something important. Some stories don't stay buried. Some letters don't expire. And some acts of kindness demand consequences. I didn't realize how quiet a town could get until everyone decided to stop talking to you at the same time. It wasn't dramatic at first. No slammed doors, no shouting matches in the street. Used small things. The way people paused half a second longer before answering me. The way conversations lowered in volume when I walked into the diner. The way my phone, which used to buzz all the time with pointless stuff, memes, half-drunk thoughts sent at midnight, suddenly felt like a brick. Heavy. Death. I told myself it was fine. Towns go through moods. People get busy. I was overthinking it. But I wasn't. Because what had happened back in part 1, that night that was supposed to be simple and turned into something that couldn't be taken back, had drawn a line through the middle of my life, and I was standing on the wrong side of it whether I liked it or not. I kept replaying the moment in my head, not the loud parts but the quiet ones, the pauses between words, the way Marcus' smile didn't reach his eyes, the way he said my name like he was tasting it, deciding what to do with it. At the time I thought it was just his usual arrogance, the same confidence that had made people admire him for years. Now I understood it was calculation. Marcus Reed had always been good at that. It was the kind of guy who never raised his voice because he never needed to. People leaned in when he spoke. They trusted him without realizing why. He remembered birthdays, asked about your kids, helped you move, helped you fix your roof, helped you feel like you owed him something without ever saying the words out loud. And me, I had been stupid enough to think that knowing someone for years meant you knew who they were. The first real sign came from Clara. Clara had been my anchor in this town. We met when neither of us knew anyone, two outsiders pretending we weren't lonely. She laughed too loud, swore too much, cried at commercials, and she had this way of cutting through my spirals with one perfectly timed joke. If anyone was going to stay, I thought it would be her. I ran into her outside the grocery store late one afternoon, the sun low enough to turn everything gold, the kind of light that makes you think maybe things hadn't so bad after all. What? She hesitated. That hesitation lasted maybe a second, maybe less, but it felt like a door quietly closing. Hey, I said, forcing a smile. Hey, she replied, and already her eyes were flicking away. I asked how she'd been. She said busy. I asked if she wanted to grab coffee sometime. She said yeah, maybe, we should definitely do that, and I knew from the tone that we wouldn't. When I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall, feeling something hollow out inside me, slowly, patiently, like erosion. That was when I understood this wasn't just about me and Marcus anymore. It had spread. It was moving through the town like a story that sounded just believable enough to stick. And the thing about stories is, people don't wait for the ending before they decide who the villain is. I tried to fight it at first. I told myself the truth would come out naturally, and if I stayed calm and honest and kept living my life, people would see through whatever version of events Marcus was selling. I went to work. I smiled. I said hello. I acted normal. But normal felt fake now, like wearing clothes that didn't fit. At work, my boss called me into his office one morning, closed the door, and sat in that way people do when they think they're being kind but are really just being careful. I don't want to get involved, he said, hands folded, eyes fixed on the desk. But there have been concerns. Concerns. That word did a lot of heavy lifting. I asked him what kind. He said he couldn't go into details. He said he knew me, believed in my character, but also had to think about the company. He said maybe it would be good if I took some time off, just until things settled. He walked out of that office feeling like he'd been erased in pencil. That afternoon, I drove without a destination, past streets I knew by heart, past houses where people I cared about lived, and for the first time I wondered if staying had been a mistake from the very beginning. The only person who didn't pull away was Eli. Eli had always been quiet, the kind of friend who listened more than he spoke, who showed up when you needed help without making a big deal about it. We met through work years ago, bonded over bad coffee and were supervisors, and somehow never drifted apart. He showed up at my place one night with takeout and a six-pack, didn't ask permission, just walked in like he always had. You look like hell, he said gently. He laughed, because if I didn't I might have cried. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch, eating cold noodles and drinking beer that tasted like nothing. He told him everything. Not the polished version. Not the one he'd been rehearsing in my head for when people asked. The real one. The fair. The doubt. The part of me that kept wondering if maybe I really had messed up more than I wanted to admit. When I finished, he didn't respond right away. He stared at the wall for a long moment, then nodded. Yeah, he said. That tracks. He looked at him. That's it. He shrugged. Marcus has been waiting for a reason to push you out. You just didn't know it. That hit harder than I expected. He told people I betrayed him, I said. That I took advantage of his trust. Eli snorted softly. Marcus don't trust people. He collects leverage. That was the first time anyone had said it out loud, and hearing it felt like someone finally naming the shape of a shadow he'd been living in for years. Still, knowing the truth and proving it are two very different things. The town didn't want nuance. It wanted a clean story, with clear lines and easy judgments. Marcus gave them that. He was the complication. Things escalated faster after that. Someone left a note on my car one morning, tucked under the windshield wiper. It wasn't threatening, not exactly. Used a few words written in block letters, maybe it's time you left. He stared at it for a long time before tearing it up. Another day, a woman I barely knew stopped me on the sidewalk and told me she was disappointed in me. She said she thought I was better than that. She didn't wait for an answer. At night, sleep became a negotiation. I'd lay there, exhausted but wired, my brain replaying every interaction, every word I'd ever said to Marcus, searching for the moment where this all became inevitable. The thing no one tells you about being pushed out of a place is how lonely it is. Not the dramatic loneliness you see in movies, but the quiet kind. The kind where your world shrinks inch by inch until it's just you and your thoughts. That's when the doubt crept in, not about what happened, I knew that. But about whether fighting was worth it. Whether staying was an act of courage or stubbornness disguised as pride. Eli thought I should confront Marcus publicly. "Is counting on you staying quiet," Eli said one night. "That's how guys like him win." But the idea made my stomach turn. I'd seen how easily Marcus could twist things. One wrong word, one emotional reaction, and he'd be proving his point for him. Still, something inside me was changing. I noticed it the day I ran into Mrs. Callahan at the post office. She was older, sharp-eyed, had lived in this town longer than anyone I knew. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, "You don't look like someone who did what they're saying you did." I blinked, caught off guard. "I've seen guilty people," she continued. "They avoid eye contact. They ruse. You don't." It was a small thing. A nothing moment, really. But it cracked something open. Maybe not everyone believed the story. Maybe they were just afraid to say so. The next turning point came from an unexpected place. A kid named Jonah worked part-time at the hardware store. It couldn't they have been more than 19, awkward, earnest, the kind of kid who still believed adults had things figured out. One afternoon, as I was paying for a few things I didn't really need, he leaned in and whispered, "I heard what they're saying about you." I braced myself. "I don't think it's true," he added quickly. "I mean, Marcus said some stuff, but it didn't make sense." My heart kicked up. "What didn't they?" he asked. Jonah hesitated, glanced around, then said, "The timeline. He said you planned it for months, but he also said it caught him totally off guard. That didn't add up." It was logic. Simply, obvious logic. And it was enough to make me realize Marcus had been sloppy, assuming no one would question him. After that, little things started surfacing. I texted someone remembered. A meeting time that didn't match his story. A detail they changed depending on who he was talking to. Nothing explosive. Nothing that would go viral or make headlines. Used cracks. Marcus noticed. He cornered me outside the community center one evening, his smile tight, eyes sharp. "You enjoying the attention?" he asked. I met his gaze, felt my hands shake, forced myself to stay still. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No," he said softly. "But you're not exactly helping it die down." There it was. The threat wrapped in politeness. "You should think about what you want your future here to look like," he continued. "Towns like this have long memories." I surprised myself by laughing. It wasn't loud. It wasn't confident. But it was real. "You're not worried about the truth," I said. "You're worried people are starting to notice." His smile disappeared for just a fraction of a second. That was when I knew. I was afraid. Not of me exactly, but of losing control of the narrative they worked so hard to build. From that point on, the tension ratcheted up. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms, but now some people would meet my eyes afterward, a question that they weren't ready to ask. Marcus doubled down, more visible, more generous, more present, as if he could outshine the doubts by force of personality alone. It felt like the calm before something bigger. I didn't know what form it would take, or when it would happen, only that the town couldn't hold this much unresolved tension forever. Something had to give. And deep down, I felt it, a quiet certainty settling in my chest. Whatever happened next was going to change everything, one way or another. The thing about tension is it never just disappears, it either fades slowly or it snaps, and in a town like this, where everyone knows everyone, it almost always snaps in public. It happened on a Thursday night, the kind of night that felt ordinary enough to let your guard down. There was a town meeting scheduled at the old civic hall, something about zoning changes, nothing anyone expected fireworks from, except I knew Marcus would be there. It was always there. Front row. Arms crossed. Looking like the man people trusted to speak for them. Eli asked if I wanted him to come with me. He almost said no. Breathing, maybe. Or exhaustion. Or that quiet voice inside me that said this was something I had to walk into alone. I'd be fine, I told him, and I meant it, at least enough to believe it for the walk from my car to the door. The hall smelled like dust and old wood and coffee that had been sitting on a burner too long. Folding chairs scraped against the floor as people settled in. I felt eyes on me, not hostile exactly, more curious now, like they were watching the final act of a play they already formed opinions about. Marcus glanced over his shoulder when I entered. For a moment, his face went blank, then the smile slid back into place, smooth as ever. He nodded at me like we were old friends. He sat near the back, hands folded in my lap, heart pounding so hard I was sure people could hear it. He told myself I didn't have to say anything. He could just listen, let the night pass, go home, keep waiting for the truth to surface on its own. That plan lasted about 20 minutes. Marcus stood up during the open comments portion, cleared his throat, and said my name. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Used calmly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I think it's important we address some lingering concerns, he said, turning slightly so everyone could see him and, by extension, see me. For the sake of transparency. The word hung there, heavy and ironic. He didn't accuse me outright. That was his skill. He talked around it. He spoke about trust. About responsibility. About how painful it was when someone you believed in disappointed you. He talked about betrayal without ever using the word. People nodded. Some looked uncomfortable. A few glanced back at me, searching my face for confirmation of the story they already half accepted. He felt something settle inside me then. Not fear. Not anger. Clarity. He stood up before I could talk myself out of it. The room went quiet in that way rooms do when everyone senses something real is about to happen. I didn't plan to speak tonight, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. But I can't listen to this anymore. Marcus turned fully toward me now, his expression one of practiced concern. I'm not attacking you, he said gently. If you feel that way, that's not my intention. I know, I replied. That's the problem. A few people shifted in their seats. I took a breath, then another, letting myself feel the room, the weight of weeks of silence, of being misunderstood, of doubting myself in the dark. I'm not here to insult anyone, I continued. And I'm not asking you to choose sides. I just want to tell you what actually happened, from my perspective. Without polish, without spin. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again. He spoke slowly, not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because I wanted every word to land. He talked about the night everything changed, about the conversation that had been framed as collaboration and turned into accusation. I explained the timeline, the details Marcus always skipped, the parts that didn't fit his version because they didn't serve him. He admitted my mistakes too. The assumptions they made. The trust they given without asking for clarity. The moments where I should be spoken up sooner and didn't they. The room stayed silent. Then Ms. Callahan raised her hand. I have a question, she said, not waiting to be acknowledged. Marcus, you said this caught you completely off guard. But you also said they've been worried about this behavior for months. Which is it? Marcus laughed lightly. Well, you know how these things are. You sense something before you can prove it. Hona stood up next. His voice shook, but he stood anyway. Then why did you text him 2 days before saying you trusted him completely and were excited about moving forward? A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus' smile faltered, just a little. Someone else spoke up. Ten anote. Small things. Dates. Mensajes. Contradictions people hadn't noticed before because they hadn't been looking. He didn't say another word. He didn't have to. The story was collapsing under its own weight. Marcus tried to regain control, raising his voice slightly, appealing to emotion, to history, to everything they built here over the years. But it wasn't working the way it used to. Once people see the cracks, they can't unsee them. Finally, the meeting adjourned in a kind of stunned quiet. People stood in clusters, whispering, processing, recalibrating. Marcus brushed past me on his way out. This isn't over, he said under his breath. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I didn't feel small. No, I said calmly. It is. The weeks that followed weren't a fairy tale. Not everyone apologized. So many people avoided me out of embarrassment. Others tried to pretend nothing had happened at all. But the hostility drained out of the air. The notes stopped. The look softened. One afternoon, Clara knocked on my door. She stood there awkwardly, hands shoved in her jacket pockets, eyes glassy. I'm sorry, she said. I should be asked you. I should be talk to you. He hugged her, and it felt like breathing again after holding it for too long. Marcus didn't disappear overnight. People like him rarely do. But his influence faded. Invitations stopped coming. His voice carried less weight. Eventually, he moved away, quietly, without the farewell he probably expected. Life didn't snap back to the way it was before. It shifted into something new. He found a different job, one that fit me better than the old one ever had. He started sleeping through the night again. I laughed more, deeper, without that edge of self-consciousness. But the biggest change was internal. I learned how fragile belonging can be, and how dangerous it is to hand your sense of self to someone else's approval. I learned that silence can look like peace but feel like erosion. And I learned that telling the truth doesn't always fix everything, but it fixes you. Sometimes I still think about that version of me from before all this, the one who believed that being agreeable was the same as being good, that loyalty meant never questioning the people you trusted. I don't judge that version of me. He did the best he could with what he knew. But I'm grateful I became someone else. Someone who understands that community isn't about unanimity, it's about honesty. That conflict doesn't always mean failure. And that sometimes the moment you're most afraid to speak is exactly the moment you need to. If you've ever been on the wrong side of a story, if you've ever felt yourself shrinking to make other people comfortable, if you've ever wondered whether standing up for yourself is worth the cost, I hope this story reminds you of something simple and true. Your voice matters. Even when it shakes. Especially when it shakes. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to stand alone to tell your truth, or watched a situation like this unfold around you? Share your experience, like the video if it moved you, and consider subscribing for more stories like this. It truly means a lot. And as always, thank you for listening all the way to the end.